Now we enter Act 2. We get a shot through a camera lens looking at a half-destroyed facility, but there are cars and cranes all around it. There are clearly people down there, and the camera begins to snap pictures. We cut back to Monarch headquarters. Nathan is at a table writing down some paperwork and pairing some files together. He feels a smack on the shoulder and down sits Eileen. She tells him that she just saw Kong. Nathan doesn't look up. That's great. You find a way to talk to him yet? Eileen cuts off his sarcastic remark. No, Nathan, I saw him. I touched him. He was right there in front of me. He was watching over Gia and he walked right up to us. He was protecting Gia and he saw that I was with her and he walked right up to us. He said that, Eileen. Then he bent down right to our faces and Gia put her hand right on his face and then she gestures me over. Next thing I know, my hand's on his face and he's absolutely okay with me. Nathan looks up very surprised. You touched Kong's face. Yes. Wow. Nathan tells her he's honestly surprised if she's telling the truth. Eileen fawns over it a bit more, and then she sees all the paperwork and files on his table. What's all this? Nathan hands her a map with coordinates of the island. Look familiar? He asks. He then hands her a photo of the facility on the island. Apex? Eileen asks. Yeah. He tells her he followed some breadcrumbs and found the Apex facility on the island. Eileen tells him that they should warn Houston about this. If the chances of Godzilla arriving are getting higher and higher as time goes on, this could be really dangerous. Nathan tells her that these attacks on these facilities have just been so sudden. He notices some kind of pattern, maybe regarding energy spikes. It turns out that whenever they conduct their tests on the bones of Dagon, the energy spikes are what led Godzilla to the facility once he senses a member of his own species. But yeah, so Nathan picks up on this. Not only does this mimic Bryan Cranston's character in 2014, but it'll also help form a sort of ground level connection between both Team Godzilla and Team Kong. We cut to a metal wall as it begins to spark. A crowbar breaks through it, prying it open as we hear heavy grunting. Okay, I got it open. Hurry it up, you guys, says Bernie. Madison and Josh run past them, with them then holding the crowbar to let Bernie inside. They all make it in, and Bernie takes them to the area where the bones were. There it is, Bernie says. Josh is in disbelief, and Madison is very surprised. You were right, she says. Bernie is slightly confused as there's a gigantic cargo box that they're in, which they definitely were not before. Unless those guards must have been securing the perimeter while these bones are prepared for transport. What would Apex be doing with these Titan bones? Asks Madison. They see that there's a bone shaped like a dorsal plate, which will foreshadow the axe. Madison says, wait, you see that one bone right there? Is that? It's a Godzilla dorsal plate, Bernie says. Bernie and Madison look at each other. Wait, so the attacks, it's been Godzilla trying to get these bones back? He doesn't think it's alive, does he? Joshua ponders off softly asking these questions. Madison tells him it has to be the only reason he would be attacking so violently. Bernie tells him about how the bones were not in cargo crates before and his theory on why the guards were there. These bones must be getting prepared to ship. And if he had to guess where to? Skull Island. But he's not sure what could be on Skull Island. Suddenly, the bones have a blue light appear on them. The sounds of helicopter blades rotating gets louder and louder. Helicopters show up and flash some lights onto the crate. Oh shit, we need to go, now, yells Bernie to Madison and Josh. Madison tells them to wait. They need to follow where the bones go or else they won't be able to put a stop to any of this. Bernie and Josh begin to argue with Madison, but she tells him that she's going. She owes this to Godzilla to clear his name. Damn it, yells Josh as he goes after her. Bernie stands there surprised, yelling at them to come back, but Bernie eventually follows suit. The helicopters circle the crate and begin to hover in place. Ropes drop from each copter, and we see the people inside fastening their gear ready to propel downwards. Madison and crew barely make it to the crates in time, going inside and hiding within each bone inside the crate. They hear the sounds of people as they hook up the crate to each rope, and then they close up the gate. They give a thumbs up, and suddenly, the gang feels themselves getting hoisted off the ground. They begin to slide around as they gain altitude. They all yell for each other to hang on, and as the chaos unfolds, we zoom in on a phone vibrating like crazy sliding around. The contact name? Dad, with a picture of Mark's face as the contact photo. We cut to papers landing hard onto a table. We hear the voice of Houston Brooks. Okay, we have a lot to unpack here. We cut to a hand spinning a pencil, and we pan up to see Eileen. As we pan up, we see some pictures she took with Gia on a folder, as well as some ASL stickers on a coffee cup, adding to her character. She tilts her head a little bit from boredom and tiredness. They're in a room that has massive windows, with a clear view of the jungle, so the scene doesn't feel as confined and claustrophobic like it has felt so far in every boardroom scene in 2014 at King of the Monsters. Houston's voice begins to fade out, and we pan to Eileen's left as we see Gia looking out of a window. We see Gia's face, and then we cut to seeing Kong's face as he groans almost in a sad way that Gia is over there. He wants to make sure she's safe. Kong grunts, looking over his shoulder, and he roars. He senses something. He looks back at Gia and then turns to walk away. He trusts Eileen to keep her safe. We cut to Gia's face, slightly worried, but a bit surprised that Kong left her in trust of Eileen. We cut to the conference room table as Gia runs back towards the bored Eileen, hugging her leg. The camera continues to pan while Houston is explaining the situation. And then we see Nathan, who's pretty much dozed off. Houston slams a book shut, waking up Nathan, 2005 King Kong reference.
No, the Tweety twerp with his nose in this book and his head up his hat.
Then telling him he's up. Nathan asks, what? And Houston tells him, you're up. Show us what you got. Nathan tells Houston he isn't exactly prepared today. Houston tells him, yeah, I can tell. No, says Nathan. I've been keeping up with an Apex facility on the island. Look. He shows Houston the photos he took. Huh. I didn't know there was an Apex facility on the island. Nathan starts nodding, suddenly having this jolt of energy again. Exactly. And those Godzilla attacks? Skull Island is right on the map for the next one. Houston says, well, how do you... Here, interrupts Nathan. He shows him the graph mirroring it to his screen. Every single time Godzilla has attacked, it's always been at one of these facilities at this point in time. Whenever there was a spike in energy. Houston scratches his head. I admit, it does look fishy, but I don't think we should be focusing our energy on Apex right now. Godzilla and his Titans are still bound to come here soon, and you were brought onto this mission to head the Hollow Earth expedition. Eileen laughs. Everyone in the room looks at her. Wait, you're not serious, are you? Nathan is heading the Hollow Earth expedition? Houston takes off his glasses. Okay, clearly you haven't been properly debriefed. Nathan laughs it off, the two almost having some kind of love-hate rivalry. Enough, Houston says. He looks at Nathan. I've been studying Kong for years now. I've reached my contact who's on the more Godzilla side of things, and he should be coming in shortly. He's been preoccupied with the attacks around the world so far, but when he comes in, we can all discuss this Apex Godzilla business further, okay? He must not be a professional considering how late he is to this meeting, Nathan says. Well, when you're running around the world, sending to each relief camp, making sure people are okay, you tend to run late to a meeting every now and then, Houston says, handing Nathan a cup of coffee to stay awake. We see these people all have like a certain bond. There's no harsh, like, I'm putting you in your place moments. It's more of like a, I know we're all tired, but try and stay awake for me here moment. It's honestly sort of sweet. Nathan thanks him for the coffee. Nathan pulls down a screen regarding the Hollow Earth expedition, and it shows a map of Skull Island as well, and he begins to show a sudden burst of intelligence as he debriefs the team. He points out all of the Hollow Earth entry points, and we can actually cut to VFX shots of the entry points into the Hollow Earth. Then we could even pan to see the EV wall and how the vent isn't too far away from it. Nathan explains that their goals are to enter the Hollow Earth and travel to the core, ensuring it's sufficient and stable enough to house the Titans without endangering the world on the surface. As he's showing how smart and passionate about this he is, Eileen still asks if all this is a joke. She asks Nathan when did he get so smart about this Hollow Earth stuff. I mean, it sounds like he just knows it too well, like it's almost like the back of his hand. Houston looks down. Nathan's demeanor changes only for a second, but he laughs it off and makes some corny joke like he was originally down there and he's trying to get back home. He just really dodges the question and laughs it off. He then finishes up where he's at regarding the Hollow Earth expedition. As Nathan continues, a man interrupts the meeting, introducing himself. Nathan is very surprised, because before the man can even finish his sentence, Nathan spurts out, Mark Russell? You're the Godzilla contact Houston was talking about? Yeah, I hope I didn't miss anything important. I apologize for my tardiness. The attacks have not been making things easy. Here we can show Nathan is slightly cowardice in nature when he runs back on his word. Eileen looking at Gia in a funny way since even she can see that he's a bit of a coward. She will gesture the words coward to her as she will giggle and smile, gesturing it back. Houston shakes his hand, telling him, not at all. Nathan here was just debriefing us on the Hollow Earth expedition. The Titans are running out of food, and we believe that the Hollow Earth will prove to be a great home for them. Mark asks, how do you know that they won't cause some kind of geographical catastrophe? Problems could be caused on the surface from their underground activity. Nathan tells him, well, that's what this expedition will serve to do. We can lure them to these vents located on the island, and when they go down to the Hollow Earth, they'll most likely want to stay there due to the food sources being 10 times better than here on the surface. Mark just hopes it'll be that easy. Nathan tells him that it should be. We just need to make sure it's stable, and that there's enough energy around the core to feed them all. Houston expresses his concerns that the Titans might get too comfortable here on the surface of Skull Island. Nathan looks out into the jungle. We cut to Kong's eyes as he's squinting, looking at the Apex facility. We hear Nathan's voice as he says, I doubt the king will let that happen. We cut to a break during the debriefing. Mark looks at his phone and calls Madison again. He's apologizing for how distant he's been, and he tells her he loves her and he just wants her to be safe at home. Here, Houston can exit the room, asking him if everything's okay. Mark begins to tell him everything's fine, it's just that he's been incredibly distant with Madison and he feels terrible about it. She isn't even answering his calls. Houston listens, and he gives him some advice and tells him that Madison loves you, Mark. She always will. Maybe she just needs some time to herself right now. We cut to Madison and the gang violently flying around, screaming. Yeah, you're probably right, Houston. Yeah, man, don't you worry about it. Everything should be A-okay between you two. We get to see these two characters don't really know each other too well, but that doesn't exactly matter. The Great Awakening surprisingly brought a lot of people together. I would say maybe these two had maybe a handful of conversations over the phone, but for the most part, they never really spoke to one another face to face in this manner before. Houston mentions the points that Nathan brought up regarding the Godzilla attacks on the Apex facilities and the one on Skull Island. Mark scratches his head in confusion. How much more do you have on this? We cut to a map sliding open on a table. I imagine social network-esque music playing in the scene. We see that these were Nathan's hands opening the map. A pen's brought down and there are some markings being done. Nathan explains where the Apex facilities were attacked, the energy spikes, and where the Apex facility on Skull Island is located. Mark talks about the theories he has, and that with his experience, Godzilla is not a malevolent force or spiteful spirit. He's benevolent in nature. Mark monologues his experience with Godzilla, and while he does this, we get even more footage of Godzilla as he goes out of his way to protect Titans and try to get them in line. At the end, they all come to the conclusion that they need to see what's going on at Apex. Nathan says he'll get some gear ready. Mark and Houston are confused. They say no, they're not going to break in. They're just going to contact Walter Simmons directly and confront him. And they'll properly get to the bottom of this and figure out what they're doing to make Godzilla tick. Nathan is pretty upset about this. He brings up the fact that they're just running out of time, and if they don't get a jump on this now, they probably won't get the chance to do so. Eileen backs him up on this, saying that Nathan has a really good point. Mark and Houston apologize. As veterans in this business, they believe him 100%, but there are rules and regulations they have to follow. Guidelines that separate them from potentially committing a crime and getting Monarch shut down. It's out of their hands. The meeting is over, and Nathan is left with a look of disbelief on his face. He scoffs and leaves the room. Eileen has a look of disdain, as she doesn't want any of this to happen. Eileen knocks on Nathan's door. He opens it and he looks a bit out of breath. Eileen wanted to just check up on Nathan and see if everything's okay. He says it's totally fine. Thanks for stopping by though. He tries to shut her out, but she holds onto the door. No, hang on a minute. Nathan. And then she senses something's off. They begin to argue as Eileen forces herself in, causing a curtain to fall over, revealing a ton of gear. Eileen looks at the gear and then looks back up at Nathan in disappointment. Really? Nathan defends himself by reiterating the circumstances to Eileen, and she sighs. After a somewhat lengthy explanation, he points out the extra gear and asks her to come. It's the only way. We cut to Team Godzilla. The sounds of giant elevator shafts and construction are heard, waking up Bernie. Bernie gasps awake, realizing they're here. He shakes Madison to wake up. Come on, Madison, wake up! Damn kids. He throws something at Josh, who just takes it before he groans and begins to wake up. Madison wakes up as well. Both kids are groggy as hell. Guys, come on, we're here. Why the hell are you two so tired? You guys don't do anything. As they begin to get up, they hear a door beginning to open. The crate opens, and they realize they are at an Apex facility. The people who open the crate begin to ready their equipment. And here we can have a really fun scene where the gang stealthily hangs on top of the bones and begin to jump off and sneak their way around the facility. Nathan and Eileen sneak out of the Monarch facility, and they stumble across Gia, who's sitting outside on a rock playing with her Kong doll. Eileen asks her why she's not inside sleeping. Gia juts up in a worried way, telling her that she has not seen Kong, and she's worried that he might be in trouble. She noticed that he ran off during the meeting. Eileen wittingly scuffs that he wasn't the only one who did that, calling out Nathan. Nathan sighs and gives her a friendly shove, and she shoves him harder with her elbow. No, Gia says. I'm scared something bad's gonna happen soon. I can feel it, she signs to Eileen. Eileen tells her that she really needs to go back inside, but Gia says no. She's almost the last of her tribe, and she's the only island shaman, and she wants to make sure Kong is okay. Eileen sees how much this means to her. She signs, okay, but you stick with me at all times, alright? I mean it. Gia nods and hugs her. Nathan intervenes. I hate to break up this little mother-daughter routine between you two, but we really need to get a move on. They all agree and head to the facility. Checking back up with G-Team, we get a scene showing them infiltrating the facility. I won't be too specific, but at this point, both G-Team and K-Team will arrive at the same Apex facility. Here, both parties will run into one another, and they'll start off kind of seeing the others as instant threats, and you could show Bernie and Nathan fight each other, just like a light little scuffle. I would say it's more comedic than dramatic. Eileen would show up and she tells them all to stop because she sees Madison and Josh. There are two kids there. Nathan looks at them, and then he realizes everything might not be what it seems. Nathan nervously laughs and apologizes, picking up Bernie and dusting him off. He says it's okay. The G team all introduce themselves, and Gia shows up and everyone is quite surprised. I thought I was crazy for bringing these kids along, Bernie says. They all get to know one another and begin to discuss their common interests: Apex facilities and the Godzilla attacks. When Nathan explains the issue of the Titans and Godzilla arriving and what their motives are with the Hollow Earth expedition, Josh asks what he means by Godzilla arriving to Skull Island. Nathan sighs as he's gonna have to give the entire spiel about how the patterns of Apex Godzilla attacks correlate to Skull Island. He doesn't even have the graph to show him, but as he starts to explain, Bernie cuts him off. The energy spikes? Nathan's face drops to a surprised expression. I noticed them too. There's a pattern. Oh, thank God someone else knows what I'm talking about, Nathan says in relief as he hugs Bernie. Bernie honestly hugs him back as both are finally glad they found another person who knows what the other is talking about. Madison and Eileen sigh and shake their heads. The crew begin to discuss what their next moves are. They decide to sneak further into this Apex facility after having more clues. They then find the bones being installed into a giant wall. As the gang remains confused, Gia pulls Eileen close and signs to her that she feels bad energy in this facility. She feels something evil lying down here. Lines like this, and her being the only island shaman, adds to her mystical nature she should ultimately have with Kong and the island. And this could also help set up later films including Mothra and the connection between Mothra and her twins. Eventually, they see it. That's no wall. They see that in this mixture of dirt and metal facility lies a giant, ancient mechanical being. It's a mechanical Godzilla doppelganger. It's MechaGodzilla. Eileen points out to Nathan some subscripts seen along the cave walls. They almost look like cave paintings. Around MechaGodzilla's feet, we see some hieroglyphics. Nathan asks how on earth could they have built a thing like that so fast, much less even build something like that. Madison tells him that she's seen these kinds of paintings before. Whatever that thing is, it is not new. Gia reads her lips and tells Eileen that this is what she and Kong must have been sensing. This was the evil that she felt. They decide they need to get out of there. Nathan tells Eileen that they should tell Mark and Houston about this. Madison asks, wait, Mark Russell? Before Nathan can answer, she frantically yells, "Oh my God, Dad," as she scrambles for her phone. Wait, you're Mark Russell's daughter? Nathan says in the background. Madison looks at her phone. Zero connection with a ton of shattered glass. She's really worried about her dad being worried about her. Eileen calms her down, and they decide they're all gonna head back to the base. We'll talk there, and everything will be okay. Gia holds Madison's hand, and Madison becomes calmer. Alright guys, let's go then. And thank you. Eileen nods. They begin to exit the facility, and as they do so, they skillfully trip every single alarm and fuck up as bad as possible. A comedic chase scene is initiated where the gang rushes out of the facility. They hope they weren't caught. I think this scene should be comedic, yet also very intense. The gang recoups outside. As they all begin to get worried, Gia asks Eileen a question. While the two begin to talk, Nathan shouts, "Look out!" He tackles Gia and Eileen to the ground, and it's revealed that a death jackal just lunged at them. There is a short scene where the gang all try to run from these creatures, finally making their on-screen debuts. As they're all cornered, a massive foot steps onto this group of death jackals. It's Kong. Kong roars and starts to grunt. He does this while shaking his head, showing something is wrong. That's Kong, Nathan yells. Bernie, Madison, and Josh are in utter disbelief. Kong points at the facility and begins to grunt in the air, swinging his arms a bit. Is the big guy alright? Bernie asks. Eileen replies, I don't really know. He obviously senses the evil that Gia did in that facility. Kong gets down to eye level with them. Gia puts her hand on Kong's face. He looks over at Eileen, and Eileen ends up doing it too. Nathan is just absolutely baffled. Part of him thought that Eileen was just making that story up. Gia looks back at Nathan and Eileen and tells them that they should go. Kong grunts, showing that he somewhat understands what's being said. He holds out his hand, and Gia steps on. She gestures to Eileen to come over as well. Eileen is absolutely scared, but she realizes she has no choice. She looks over at Nathan and grabs him by the arm. Nathan begins to start saying, no, this is crazy. He's doing everything he can to try and get out of this. Bernie and Josh are absolutely saying no, but Madison steps on too, telling them that they have to hurry. They all step into his hand, and Kong picks them up. The second they all step foot into his hand, they rise high into the air. This is a 300-foot Kong we're talking about. You know, like those rides at places like Six Flags where you shoot into the air in a fast motion? That's exactly what these people are feeling here. Nathan screams, and so does Eileen, as Kong raises them high to his chest. He goes on all fours, and he begins to run into the jungle. We can have a funny scene while they're all rushing through the jungle. Nathan is worried Kong doesn't know where he's going, and Nathan yells for Kong to stop. Kong does so and looks at Nathan. Nathan asks Kong where they're going. Kong stares blankly. Eileen asks him, are you expecting an answer? Kong grunts and continues moving, with Nathan yelling, okay, so it was a stupid question! This is like the perfect homage to Kong the Animated Series. And if you can't already tell, we're trying to characterize Kong more like the Kong from that series. The crew all arrive near Monarch headquarters. Kong places them down slowly and gets down to eye level with them. Everyone steps off his hand, thanking him. Eileen, Madison, and Gia touch Kong's face. Joshua touches his face too, surprisingly, and Kong's okay with this. Even Bernie shakily taps Kong's finger a couple times, telling him thank you. Nathan sees how Eileen and Gia are able to touch Kong's face, and so Nathan slowly raises his hand while he thanks him, but suddenly he's blown back by a gust of wind from Kong's nose. Kong grunts, and Nathan puts his hand down. Guess we're not there yet. Gia gestures to Kong that it's okay for him to go. Eileen does so as well. Kong grunts and gets up and walks into the tree line, disappearing from sight. As they go inside, Madison says, my dad is gonna kill me. The entire gang all hangs out at the facility. Some are tending to potential wounds they may have sustained, others are eating. It began raining not too long ago. Houston Brooks enters the facility, raincoat on and glasses soaking wet. He asks what the hell happened. Eileen and Nathan introduce him to Madison, Bernie, and Joshua. Houston asks, Madison? Russell, yeah. Eileen said that my dad's here on the island right now. Is there any way I can see him? Of course. Your dad has been worried sick about you. You've been all I could think about, Houston says as he dials Mark's number. Maybe while this happens, we cut to Bernie, Josh, and Gia, who are all sitting down exhausted. Bernie and Josh can have a moment alone where here we get some more of their comedic back and forth, while also showing that they do care about each other. Teasing each other helps provide some levity, and they're both on the same page when it comes to that regard. We cut back to the main crew and see Mark enter the facility, soaking wet. He looks at Madison and he runs towards her, lifting her into the air and hugging her. He's a completely mixed bag right now. He's all, thank God you're okay, what the hell are you doing here? Are you hurt? I love you, you're grounded, you stick with me and never leave my side. He's being a protective father. She tells him that she's okay, and we get an outside window looking in shot of the facility as it's raining. Our massive group begins to talk to one another, showing that they're all filling each other in on what has happened. As we zoom out while Skull Island is experiencing rain, we see a hairy wet leg in the foreground. And obviously it's Kong. He's watching over everybody to make sure Gia and Eileen are okay. I think this is much like the moment we saw in GVK when he's on the ship in the rain. Kong does still feel lonely, almost like he has to keep his distance. He feels like if he gets too close, it could draw them all away. His thoughts are interrupted by the sounds of a helicopter whirring in the distance. He looks up to it and roars. The helicopter lands in front of the facility, and to the entire group's confusion, out steps a man in a trench coat. Bernie says, no way. Mark and Houston walk outside to greet the man. Walter Simmons, it's an honor to meet you, says Houston. No, please, the honor's mine. Mark tells him that they've been trying to contact him. Walter apologizes, joking that it's quite hard to get some service on this island. Walter begins to confront the gang behind Mark and Houston about where they just were. He leads them on by telling them he saw some security footage and noticed his facility was under attack. He was surprised it wasn't by Godzilla this time. Everyone begins to look guilty, and then we see Walter laugh. He tells everyone it's okay, he won't be pressing charges or anything, he just wants to know why they did it. As Bernie and Nathan begin to go all conspiracy theory on him, Mark tells them all to slow down. He calmly explains their suspicions and how what might be going on at Apex is related to the Godzilla attacks. He tells Walter that these attacks might not be out of spite, but out of concern another one of his species might be in trouble or something. Though that's just my theory. But he gets back to basics, telling him that they think the next Apex facility that's about to be attacked is this one, here on Skull Island. Walter completely understands, and he shows how genuine he is when he tells them all to get some rest. There will be answers tomorrow, and if you all would like, I'll have my good friend Matt here pick you up around the morning, and you guys can see for yourselves what we've discovered here. Discovered? Says Josh. Walter laughs. He put his hands on Mark's shoulder and tells him to come tomorrow. Mark nods and the two shake hands. This is setting up how professional both people are, how genuine they are, and how good they are. Walter remembering each of the people who work for him's name, and him being nice, having a sense of humor, he's just so charismatic and lovable. So I really am trying to characterize him as that John Hammond-esque character. The next morning, it's very gloomy with slight rain. Walter Simmons personally shows up to greet everybody, and they all have friendly banter as they get into this helicopter. Much like Jurassic Park, we get a short scene of all these people in the helicopter heading towards the facility. We first see Nathan, slightly feeling not well, we'll say. It turns out he's afraid of heights. Eileen teases him because he's going to head an expedition to the hollow earth, but he can't survive being 60 meters into the air. He laughs it off, but he's really nervous. I mean, maybe he could just grip her hand when they experience some turbulence or something. We also see Bernie talking to Madison, Mark, Josh, and Houston. This could be of a more comedic scene, kind of some funny back and forth banter where we learn more about Madison and Mark and what they've had to go through as a family after Mama Bear tried committing the biggest genocide known to man. Walter sees Gia is uncomfortable. He asks Eileen if she's okay. Eileen is honest and tells her that Gia is the last of the iwi. She's had a bad feeling about this place. Walter doesn't know ASL too well, but he asks if Eileen can tell her that he will make sure everything's okay. Eileen tells this to Gia, and Gia signs thank you. Walter smiles. Gia looks out the window. In the trees, she can see glimpses of Kong running, keeping up with the helicopter. She smiles. Now she knows she'll be safe. We then get the full reveal of MechaGodzilla. Walter explains that they discovered him here a couple months ago. They've been keeping it here secret until they figure out more about this thing. He explains that his company, Apex Cybernetics, was able to utilize their advanced technology to bring this thing back online and control it. Command it. Mark and Houston are just fascinated by it. Houston points out the hieroglyphs around the feet and the walls of the cave. Whatever is carved onto that machine does not look like any language known to man. It's very mysterious and eerie. Walter explains the whole power issue with MechaGodzilla, and Bernie asks why he's been using Godzilla bones to power him. Walter answers that MechaGodzilla responded to the power Godzilla bones had. The bones provide a good structure for some enhancements we make to the mech to keep it moving. Right now the mech has about 40% charge. That's all they've been able to get it up to. Walter asks if they would like to see a demonstration. Everyone agrees, and we get to see MechaGodzilla activate and then take on 2 or 3 giant skullcrawlers. This isn't like an instant kill kind of thing, but we do see how brutal and vicious MechaGodzilla can be. Walter looks back at the group and tells them, "This will be humanity's best defense against the Titans." We cut to Kong outside the facility. He snarls in anger. He knows something's down there. We cut to Godzilla battling it out with Titans. We can get a quick fight scene between him and some kind of really cool looking monster. In the fight, he looks up in the air and begins to snarl. Now he senses it. After the fight is over, Godzilla spares the other monsters who then submit. Godzilla looks across the waters, and he unleashes an alpha call. We can see some Titans like Behemoth, Mekele Membe, Scylla, Methuselah, and Rodan all look up. It's time to give them all a new home. One where they can eat, and one where they can thrive. It's time to save the member of his species he believes is in danger. Godzilla heads towards Skull Island. We then cut to the entire group being treated by Walter having a lunch. This will be like the lunch debate scene in Jurassic Park. In this scene, they begin to talk about the potential MechaGodzilla has. Many believe it's a good thing now that they, have a being who can help defend against the Titans, but the only ones with uneasy feelings on their faces are Mark, Madison, and Gia. Walter notices this and asks them why they don't look relieved. Mark explains that he thinks they're messing with powers they just don't understand. This thing was found buried here. Humans definitely did not build that thing, and there's a chance that things like this can go sideways very quickly. Mark and Walter calmly explain each other's points. Mark disagrees. Serizawa taught him to always trust in Godzilla. Walter tells him Godzilla won't be able to save everybody. He can barely get his own Titans in line right now. This will be an actually intelligent scene where they begin to discuss the ethics of what they're doing. Walter compares it to humans creating a gun or a tank. It's only in self-defense. Mark says, or like a nuclear weapon. He mentions that it can fall into the wrong hands, Walter. Walt brings up the fact that Monarch had no problem utilizing nuclear weaponry a couple weeks ago to revive Godzilla. Mark tells him that was to revive Godzilla. They didn't have any other choice. What makes you think we have a choice? If the Titans decide to attack again, what makes you think we can just stand by and let it happen? How many more lives have to be lost? The scene will get more and more intense until Walter mentions he doesn't plan on losing another daughter, and then he cuts himself off. Silence drowns out the room. He clears his throat and smiles, showing how professional he is. He apologizes for losing his temper. Madison tells Walter that the road to hell is often paved with good intentions. Most would agree that humans do need a line of defense, but Godzilla has been attacking your facilities because of the use of his ancestors' bones. Walter understands, but right now he has no other options. He gets up from the table with his hands on his head. Nathan says, "The power source, and the hollow earth." Everyone looks at him. Nathan once again displays his intelligence here regarding the hollow earth, and he mentions that they're planning an expedition soon to get the Titans back down into the hollow earth. If there's enough food and energy to feed them, they can find a way to utilize that energy to get MechaGodzilla up and running properly. That way they don't have to use the bones of that Godzilla for similar energy. Walter applauds his way of thinking. Nathan mentions Monarch has tried creating some aircrafts fit for such a journey, but the issue of the gravity inversion persists. There's a good chance that once they hit that gravity inverse, the ships won't be suitable enough to survive that. It's almost like a suicide mission. Walter tells him it's not a problem. Just get in touch with his engineers and they'll create some aircrafts that can help get them there. Nathan agrees, and it's like a huge weight was lifted off his chest there. The next few scenes will serve as the calm before the storm. We get another scene of Eileen teaching sign language to Gia and Kong. We get a really nice moment showing Gia actually being able to learn sign language. Again, she learns a lot quicker than most people because she's an iwi with mystical powers, and we're setting her up to be the one true shaman of the island, very much like Lua from Kong the Animated Series. She isn't complete magic or anything, but her certain abilities do raise some good questions. Eileen looks up at Kong, who's showing even more signs of growth because he's actually out here with Eileen, learning the language. Eileen asks Kong if he understands. He looks at Gia and then looks back at Eileen. Just a head tilt and a groan. Eileen sighs. At least he trusts her enough to be out here. Nathan interrupts her, and Kong begins to back away. He clearly doesn't like Nathan, though it's more of like a comedic dynamic as opposed to foreshadowing like a darker side of Nathan or anything. Nathan talks to Eileen about the mission and if she's nervous. She admits that she is. She mentions that Gia isn't going to come, and Gia is able to read this off her lips. She tugs at her leg, and the two begin to discuss the prospect of her coming. Ultimately, Nathan vouches for her coming because they're going to need Kong to come as well. He'll only protect them if she's there. Gia smiles and punches Nathan in the leg, standing right next to him. Eileen looks back up at Kong, and then she says she has to think about it more. She fesses up and says that she's just worried Gia or Kong could get hurt. Nathan understands. He'll do his best to make sure that they're safe. Eileen and Gia look at him. What? Gia signs that he's a coward, and he asks what she's saying.
Just an Iwi expression, it means that you're very brave.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
This joke we gotta keep in. It's fucking perfect, especially the payoff at the end of the film. I love that moment so much. They finish their little talk, and Gia and Eileen walk away. Nathan has his hands on his hips, smiling, and then he looks up at Kong. It's just me and you now, huh, big guy? Kong walks away as well. We cut to Madison and Mark. They discuss the ethics that go into making MechaGodzilla. Madison is much more open to it, but Mark is worried that there's going to be heavy consequences for meddling with forces beyond their control. Madison tells Mark that they don't really have a choice. As much as she hates to say it, Walter's right. Godzilla isn't going to be there all the time. They'll never be able to be at two places at once. Even Kong has been busy protecting his island and nearly losing all his people. Humanity needs another line of defense, and without using the bones of another Godzilla, it could take months to a year before that mech properly functions. With how often Titans have been attacking, they just don't have that kind of time. Mark just hopes that she's right. These Godzilla attacks do need to stop. But that thing is not from Earth, and ultimately they're messing with things they don't understand. If Serizawa taught Mark one thing, it's that the fear of things you don't understand will always lead to chaos if you're not careful. I'm thinking here you could also squeeze in some scenes with Bernie, Josh, Houston, Mark, and Nathan all helping with the EB relief camp as the sun goes down. We cut to the next morning. It's a gloomy day here on Skull Island after the rain has stopped. In the facility, we see people are up and working, tracking certain Titans, focusing their efforts on the EV relief, and making sure to map out the Hollow Earth entry point expedition. Walter Simmons personally shows up to greet everybody. He shakes some people's hands who are still fawning over the fact that a trillionaire that's world famous is standing right in front of them. Nathan, Mark, Eileen, and Houston all greet him. Walt mentions that the heaves are almost ready. The what? Madison asks, walking by with a cup of coffee. Heaves. Hollow Earth anti-gravity vehicles. That fast? Eileen asks. My cybernetics team indeed works very fast. They aren't finished, but they're already suitable for most of the travel. When you tell people it's to prevent more Titan attacks, they tend to move pretty fast, Walter says with a chuckle. Nathan laughs as that's great news to him. Walter asks if they would like to go on once again to the Apex facility to test out the heaves and see if they're fit for the journey. Nathan says he would love nothing more. We cut to Gia playing with the Kong toy in her room. She fiddles with the arms and then stops. She fearfully looks towards the wall, and she places the hand on the wall, and she feels Godzilla. This moment in GVK is perfect. It needs to be exactly like this. Gia rushes outside, much like in the movie, trying to find Eileen. Machines and radar detectors begin going off, lending to her mystical nature and showing that she sensed Godzilla long before everyone else did. Gia finds Eileen tugging onto her sleeve. Eileen asks, "What is it?" Nathan asks her the same question, and Eileen shoots up, looking at him in the eyes. Godzilla. Just like in the movie, we cut to Kong roaring in anger. He begins rushing through the trees. Cut back to the humans, and we see people running to their battle stations. Mark has his glasses on, as so does Houston, and there's chaos just all around. The crew begin to exclaim that there are Titan signatures appearing close to the shores of the island. Shit, Mark says. He looks at Houston. They must have used the Hollow Earth vents to get here that fast. My thoughts exactly, Houston says. The intensity and suspense of GVK built up in this scene is excellent, and I really want that to be conveyed here. So we get some shots of the monsters swimming towards the island, some even of them like burrowing out of the ground. Walter Simmons yells to most of the group that they need to go now. Nathan, Gia, Eileen, and Houston hop into a helicopter, with Gia worried for Kong's safety. So is Eileen. Kong roars at the helicopter Gia leaves in, almost as if he's ensuring that they keep her safe. Mark, Maddie, Bernie, and Josh stay at the Monarch facility to help evacuate. Arriving first at the island is Rodan, surveying the area. Then comes Methuselah, and finally Behemoth. And here we get a brilliant 4 to 5 minute action scene of Kong battling it out with these titans. Highlighting his intelligence, we get a glorious Skull Island battle where Kong ultimately wins. Now this is a great option because A, we're getting an incredible action scene. B, Kong is shown with respect and grace. He's not OP, he's going to have some great feats here and just show how much he's really grown, but it's not going to be an easy fight for him. This also makes Godzilla look powerful since he and Kong will have a shifting power dynamic. So Kong battles it out and beats Godzilla's titans. He picks up Rodan by the neck, dragging him to the Hollow Earth entry point, and Rodan roars at him. Mirroring what we saw with Camazotz, Kong roars back, punching him all the way down into the Hollow Earth. He begins to do the same for Methuselah and Behemoth, but he only begins by dragging their unconscious, knocked out bodies. We cut to Team Kong getting into their heaves. They're ready. This Hollow Earth expedition is now or never. Walter stays behind. Equipped with kaiju effective missiles, they travel to Kong. Kong surveys the aircraft and Gia steps forward, and Kong knows it's her. She sighs that she's okay, and she tells him to be careful. Something is coming. Kong grunts at her, and the sounds of crashing waves appear. He turns to look over his shoulder. We get some insane buildup as Godzilla's spines breach the waters of Skull Island. Out steps Godzilla. He roars and steps foot onto the island in a dramatic moment. Kong beats his chest and roars. Over the ruined EV wall just outside the Monarch facility rises Godzilla, and he crashes through this wall while people are nearly finished evacuating. This angers Kong beyond belief. If the Titans want to remain on Skull Island, they need to submit to Kong. If not, they need to go into the Hollow Earth. Godzilla is here because the Titans do need a home, and while Skull Island is sufficient in resources, the Titans and Godzilla can't detect the potent radiation of the Hollow Earth because of how far down it is. They don't know that it's suitable for them. But Kong, however, does. Kong sends Titans down there and they don't come back up, so that shows that it is, and it's answering the question of how he knows it is. Everyone watches in terror as Kong and Godzilla size each other up. Godzilla roars at Kong to submit. He snarls in anger. Only one of them will bend the knee, and it sure as shit ain't gonna be him. Godzilla roars. The two engage in a vicious battle that's around 5 to 10 minutes long. It should be an incredible scene that really highlights why this is a great matchup. You have Kong's speed, his agility, intelligence, and of course his formidable strength, which should complement Godzilla's brutality, ruthlessness, strength, and weaponry. While the two battle it out, it's very important to show a shifting power dynamic. Kong gets put in a hold by Godzilla, and Godzilla opens his mouth as the light flashes brighter and brighter. Kong sees the buildup of the glow through his spines, and the sounds getting louder and louder. He finds a way to knock Godzilla off balance, and as he battles Godzilla later on, Godzilla eventually does fire his atomic breath at Kong's chest. Gia and Eileen scream, with Gia crying. Everybody believes Kong's dead. The smoke clears, and there stands Kong with smoldering fur. Now he's pissed. Godzilla has a confused look on his face, and out of the smoke comes a charging King Kong. This will be controversial, but the reason we're making Kong take hits of the atomic breath is because it highlights how durable he would be, which compensates for his lack of powers, and it makes for a tougher challenge for Godzilla. 62, Kong had this level of durability as well, and it was really cool. So that's something that I would love to bring back here. It also cuts out Kong just running from the beam, as that's fucking lame, which is mainly what round 2 in the film was. But yeah, these fights need to show the two Goliaths going head to head in close quarters. It will be very brutal. We'll be seeing Godzilla rip Kong up, Kong scarring Godzilla and concussing him like he does in the movie at certain points, and it'll just culminate in Kong tackling Godzilla off a cliff and into the waters below. Here we could get a continuation of what King Kong vs. Godzilla gave us, which is an underwater battle. We've seen Kong hold his breath for pretty long before, like 25 plus minutes in the animated series, though he is out of his element here, that's a given. Here they could battle on like a sinking aircraft carrier, and we can see Kong chain Godzilla up with those, massive chains that usually do come with aircraft carriers. I mean, we even see that in the movie. Just some really cool scenes like that. Ultimately, their fight will end with Kong and Godzilla sinking further and further into the depths below, with the heave around them due to it being able to go underwater. Then the kaiju will crash through a mountainside, shift a tectonic plate, and open a hollow Earth entry point, just like that. Not only would this be a reference to Godzilla vs. Mothra Battle for Earth, when Godzilla opens the tectonic plate when fighting Batra, but when they actually open that hollow Earth entry point, it would also replicate what we see with Godzilla vs. Tiamat in Godzilla Dominion. So Godzilla and Kong do get their battles separated here. Eileen, Gia, Nathan, and Houston, who will now hereby be referred to as Team Kong, hover around the fight. The heave almost gets destroyed, but Kong catches it safely and holds the gang tight as they begin to fall into the hollow earth. We end the scene with Team Kong a bit ambiguously here, and then we cut back to the aftermath of the fight as everybody tries their best to recoup. Mark makes sure Madison's okay. Some Monarch workers estimate Godzilla might be headed to Hong Kong right now due to potential Titan activity occurring there. Worried about what might happen, Walter decides it's time to deploy MechaGodzilla. Mark and Walter nearly fight over this, but ultimately, Walter is set on saving people. He calls for Team Kong to see what's going on, but he's met with static. Once he gets that power source, he'll be sure MechaGodzilla is deployed to save people. We cut back to Team Kong falling into the hollow earth. I don't know, I personally don't think the whole vortex thing was that cool. It seemed a bit too unrealistic. If it's gonna matter that much in future entries, then I guess you might as well just force it in there. It's not that big of a deal, but it's just like my personal preference. But I do love the drop scene and Kong basically falling down into the hollow earth and him roaming around the area. I think that stuff was really cool. So, I mean, this stuff should generally just play out like we see in the film. If anything, what I would change is us just getting a couple more shots of scenes of the hollow earth to really try and appreciate the beauty of it. Remember how in the beginning we set up that Scylla went missing after her battle with Godzilla? Well, I want her to appear here in the scene, maybe just like in the background or something. Maybe the humans could talk about her being the Titan that disappeared, and we can have Houston say, Kong battled her here on Skull Island and he sent her down into the hollow earth. He could theorize with Nathan that since she seems to be peaceful, maybe this is a place that the Titans can thrive in. We can continue like the film does and get the Warbat fight. Only changes I'd make, have Kong dismantle both of them. Show he's inexperienced with these kinds of Titans, and yes, he does get into that little conundrum, but Kong uses his teeth and bites his way out of the Warbat wings. From there, he would crush them. That would be awesome, and Eileen will yell for Kong through the speakers on the heave, telling him that they need to stop. They step on a mountainside and come out. Kong will eat the Warbat while they wait. Maybe here we can focus on Team Kong now trying to gather themselves. Show Nathan losing his mind at how crazy what just happened was, and that he's a bit sick. Houston is fascinated as his theories in the 70s don't nearly come close to what kind of ecosystem he'd imagined this place had. This scene really serves as a means of showing everyone getting back on track, and kind of acts as like a culmination of everything that Houston's life has built up towards. Houston will bring up a subject matter regarding the gravity inversion, and Nathan will explain something about it. Eileen pretty much flips and is all like, alright, what gives? How do you know so much about this place? Nathan still laughs it off, but Eileen tells him it's time to cut the shit. She comes off a bit too bluntly, but there's obviously something that he's not telling her. Houston will walk away with Gia at this point. Nathan tells her about his brother. His brother attempted this mission not too long ago, and he failed, and it was Nathan's fault. He thought he knew enough about the inversion, but with Monarch's aircrafts not being ready and Nathan wanting to rush it all, he lost his brother as a result. And ever since then, he wanted to make it right. But he knows it was his fault. That part will always remain with him, and he'll never forgive himself for it. Eileen apologizes and tells him that she feels terrible for constantly laughing at him about it. Nathan becomes a bit cold, pushing her away. He's up front and tells her, look, don't worry about it. You don't need to convince me that it wasn't my fault or that he loved me or whatever. Let's skip all that typical drama. Alright, it's all good. Nathan, Eileen says, trying to pull him back. He continues to walk away, with her looking at him sadly. Houston asks if they're all about ready to go. Everyone's okay. Kong peers over the crew, and Gia tells him that they're all ready to go. As they all get inside, I'm going to shamelessly reference The Suicide Squad by James Gunn. You can have a moment where Kong offers some Warbat remains to Houston, and Houston asks Eileen, what is he doing? Eileen points out to Houston that he's offering him some Warbat brains as a sign of respect. And Houston's like, why the fuck would I want a giant snakehead? That would be a quick comedic moment to kind of help set the tone for further scenes down the line. Kong looks over his shoulder and roars. He begins to run, picking up his trail again. Everyone is surprised, like, oh shit, he's on the move. He's sensing something. The closer Kong gets to the core and what will be the old Kong lair, he will sense that gravity inversion, which is what will catch his attention. So I think much like in the film, we can then get the gravity inversion scene, which honestly was really well done. So now is the perfect point to cut to what's going on with the Godzilla side of things. Alright, in order to break up the film here and sort of slow everything down due to already having excessive monster action, we can quickly take a scene or two to show what's going on with Mark, Madison, Josh, Bernie, and Walter Simmons. Right now, Mark, Maddie, Josh, and Bernie are in a helicopter tracking down Godzilla. They could have some time for further character development here while they follow him to Hong Kong. Bernie could show his admiration for Mark being the head of Monarch now. Maddie and Josh can have some time to talk to one another. And while this is happening, they're following Godzilla. Like, he's literally right outside their helicopter window swimming. Mark still has him on radar. While they're all talking, Mark could begin to open up to Bernie about what happened with his wife. He could explain that she just got caught in the wrong crowd or something. Look, her motivations in King of the Monsters really fucking sucked. Like, it's probably one of the worst human characters in most fucking media, I'm not gonna lie. But, maybe here, like, we could try to explain a much better reason she did the things that she did. He could also tell Bernie about what she did to save them all at the end of King of the Monsters, which was never covered by the media because of what a bad person she was. You can also open up about Serizawa and how, at times, he doesn't even know if he's got what it takes to be half the man Serizawa was. The helicopter pilot tells him Godzilla's submerging, and we get an outside shot of Godzilla's spines as he descends. Mark says that's fine, they still have him on radar. Bernie could also open up about Sarah and try to kind of relate, and he can also say that he thinks Serizawa picked Mark for a reason. They hear a beeping sound. Ah, shit, Mark says. What's up, Bernie asks. It's Godzilla. He's dropping off the radar again. Damn Hollow Earth pockets. Mark tells the pilot to punch it. They need to get to Hong Kong as fast as they can. We can then cut to the Walter Simmons side of things. Walt looks at the news and sees the Titan rampaging in Hong Kong. This could be the time to introduce a really cool Amulek-esque Titan, or maybe it could be Mekele Membe, who probably didn't make it to Skull Island and just began rampaging in Hong Kong. Walter makes some calls, and he decides to deploy MechaGodzilla. People warn him he's at 40% energy right now, like he's not going to be able to handle both that Titan and Godzilla. Walter says it's fine, they need to save those innocent people. Here we see MechaGodzilla has now been activated. He's then sent to Hong Kong, but not through the Hollow Earth pocket. That's the Titan's way of what's essentially fast travel, but Apex and MechaGodzilla don't know that. Also, I want you to keep in mind that at this point we should be about like an hour and 20 or 30 minutes into the movie, and if that seems a bit too quick, then maybe an hour 40. Much like in the movie, we now get the throne room scene. Now, there isn't really too much I would change here. Get rid of the axe, though. We're going to introduce that a bit later. For now, these are just bones everywhere. I don't really like the designs of the Hellhawks either, so I would try and find cooler designs for these things. Actually, the concept art seemed a lot cooler than what we'd actually gotten, so just adapt those monstrous things. Actually, even do that with practical effects, that would be fucking amazing. Now we hit Act 3, the final stretch. The next scene would be Godzilla arriving in Hong Kong. Much faster than everybody else, but there's still a lot of damage and death caused by the Titan. We see the Titan roar at Godzilla, and Godzilla roars back. The two become interlocked in battle, and here we could get a really cool small fight scene. We can see the city still being evacuated and people running in terror. This would be a really short scene, and really interspliced with it would be scenes of Mark trying to do everything he can for them to evacuate as head of Monarch. Like in the movie, we can get the scenes where they extract the sample of power from the Hollow Earth. Remember, downloading it directly is fucking stupid. They need to make sure they explain that they're really just downloading like the mainframe. They're analyzing the source of energy and are sending the DNA pattern to the surface for Apex to replicate. I know like the movie actually explained this, and I was really surprised a lot of people were just like, what the fuck, it's so stupid. No, like they explained they were just trying to replicate the DNA, so I guess in this rewrite you really want to like reinforce that idea. So after Godzilla defeats the Titan, he roars and bores a hole through the Hollow Earth. I think this is stupid and all, but fuck it, there's like no other way to get Kong and Godzilla to meet unless it's like this. But you can give Godzilla a good reason to do this. Maybe he does it because he first senses the radiation down there being messed with, and that when he fires this hole, he can now sense there is sufficient radiation for the Titans down there. So I guess he tosses like the unconscious Titan he just defeated into this hole. When he does this, we get the throne room destruction scene. Now, I would not destroy the entire throne room, but it should still get partially destroyed. The Hellhawks attack as Godzilla fires the atomic breath, and we get that scene of the humans in battle with these Hellhawks. We also see Nathan help save Houston, Gia, and Eileen. He gets injured, but it's a good idea to show that he's stepping up and defending what's important to him now, his friends. It's a moment that shows him stepping out of his cowardice shell, which is what we want. That's called character development. I think the movie does kind of do this pretty well, in my opinion. Angered by the destruction caused by Godzilla and his friends' lives being in danger, Kong roars and decides it's time to end this. He jumps into the hole created by Godzilla, ready to face him. Keep in mind, Kong does not have his axe yet. That's coming later, I promise. Team Kong follows him, and we cut to Team Godzilla. Mark and them also arrive far too late. Walter sees the live news footage of Godzilla and what is about to happen. He knows that some serious destruction is about to go down. He calls for MechaGodzilla's pilots, who tell him they're still on their way. It's just they're really far away. While these scenes with the humans happen, we get some really good buildup of fear. Like no matter what, it's going to be out of our control. We're going to get caught between these two powerful forces in nature, and nothing can stop them. Kong rises out of the Hollow Earth, and Godzilla turns around to look at him. The two square off, performing their intimidation displays. but they know neither will back down. Kong roars and he charges Godzilla, leaping off a building and Superman punching Godzilla square in the face. Godzilla hits the building and then lunges towards Kong and tackles him through a building. I won't go too in depth regarding the fights. I'm not going to break down each and every single move. I'll talk about a couple highlights here and there, but I do want you guys to imagine a very creatively choreographed fight. This would be the main Godzilla vs Kong fight. This is what we're paying for. So the best part of this fight is when the two fight hand to hand. I hate that in the movie, round 2 consists of Kong just running from the beam. So here I would have them fight in close quarter combat. I actually have an animation in the works right now regarding how I would do this kind of fight scene if there was a round 2.5, you know, basically like a Hollow Earth battle. Yeah, but it would be really cool if the two actually ended up fighting so viciously that they both fall down into the Hollow Earth. There we can see them fight against multiple other creatures while also battling each other. And the reason they will be going down here is because this is when Kong creates his axe. He's going to outright create it. He'll rip off shards of Godzilla's dorsal fins, and then use a giant femur bone to jam the blade of the axe into it. And now Kong will utilize Godzilla's own body against him. The two are very bloody in this battle. They will fall back to Hong Kong again, and this fight will actually end in favor of Godzilla. Although, important note, Godzilla is barely going to win this one. He will fight tooth and nail with Kong, and it will end with Kong getting his chest stomped on. He'll roar in defiance of Godzilla. Godzilla will charge his atomic breath ready to kill him. And then they get interrupted by MechaGodzilla. No, I'm just kidding. I really do hate that cop-out idea. I actually do want to show Kong shaking Godzilla off, pulling his head in and kind of grappling him. Kong kicks Godzilla off of him, and we see Godzilla fire his breath at Kong. Kong has taken plenty of hits from the breath earlier, so at this point he's pretty burnt up bad. Like, now it's really starting to hurt. He ends up tackling Godzilla, and both monsters are exhausted by this point. Panting and out of breath, Kong just keeps coming towards Godzilla. Gia and Team Kong cry, yelling for him to stop, but Kong kind of gestures that it's okay. This is where Godzilla earns his respect for Kong, where no matter how many times he tries, Kong just keeps coming at him. This is what leads to the scene where Godzilla has to go all out on Kong and viciously knock him out after a very emotional scene. Godzilla roars in victory, and then he passes out. This way you show Godzilla is the true winner, but it's a very tough fight for him. While Ghidorah was his superior when amped in the last movie, here Godzilla meets his equal. While not entirely his equal and Godzilla does have the edge, it's very close, and I think this is respectful to both monsters. This fight scene should easily be 10 to 20 minutes in length, easily. Again, this is what the audience is paying for, and it's a really good way to pay respect to both of these character icons who have helped drastically shape and evolve cinema into the art that it is today, directly and indirectly. Walter meets up with Mark and the gang at Hong Kong. He tells them MechaGodzilla will be arriving shortly. Mark tells him that it's not worth it, the fight's already over, but Walter assures him that they need all the help they can get for the city to be rebuilt, evacuated, and while the two monsters are out, MechaGodzilla can help send Kong back to the Hollow Earth and Godzilla into the ocean. Maybe now Godzilla knows he can send the Titans into Hollow Earth instead of Skull Island. As MechaGodzilla shows up, we see it helping with the evacuation and saving people. Team Kong arrives and lands near Kong. He isn't going to be dying, but he is in severe pain and, of course, he's unconscious. Gia can cry in sadness over this and sense his heartbeat. Kong shakes his head and looks at Gia, and he groans. He looks over at Godzilla, who's still out, and then he looks back at Gia, still getting his rest. If he really wanted to right now, he can end Godzilla since Godzilla is still out. Instead, Kong will use this time to gain more energy back. MechaGodzilla walks up to Godzilla and picks him up. He begins to make his way into the ocean, but Godzilla wakes up and he sends MechaGodzilla back with either like a nuclear pulse or like a tail whip attack. He looks at MechaGodzilla and realizes this is what he was sensing. Maybe his relative is trapped inside that thing. Godzilla is becoming, like, you can see the gears turning in his head. Godzilla is becoming so desperate for possibilities of having a relative still alive. So he unleashes a roar into the air, and this roar seems to activate MechaGodzilla. It seems like it awakens the machine and what its original intent was when arriving on Earth years ago, to destroy. The two pilots in the machine yell that they have no control over it. It's not responding. The eyes turn red and MechaGodzilla roars in utter fury. Walter tells him to try and get it back online, but MechaGodzilla turns around and unleashes his beam upon the city. It then battles it out with Godzilla like we see in the film. Much like in the movie, Kong is still lying on the ground. Again, he's not dying, but it's clear he might need like a jump start to really get him moving. This is where we can have the scene where Gia, Eileen, and Nathan decide to blow up the Heave to defibrillate Kong, essentially. Houston explains this to help give Kong a kick. This is where you can really crank up Nathan playing hero. Keep that coward moment in. Again, it's perfect. I love it. Skarsgård's comedic timing here is amazing. I love that little... I don't know. It's like one of my favorite moments. Houston will warn Nathan that if he does this, there's a good chance he might not come back. Nathan knows. He hands Houston the photo of his brother he's had throughout the movie. Eileen will tell him to please make it out safely. The two will hug and maybe even share a kiss. They clear out and Nathan flies the heave onto Kong's chest. He activates it to self-destruct and climbs off Kong. He injures his leg in the process, and as he rushes away, he's way too close to the blast. It sends him flying and it nearly kills him. We won't know for sure at this point, but it'll be hinted that maybe Nathan is dead. You know, it'll be a really scary moment for the audience because we've just connected so long with this character. Kong awakens with electricity forming around his eyes. This electricity could actually tease potential future movies where, thanks to this little, like, defibrillation thing he had, now he could probably be able to perhaps harness electricity. Not right now, though. Right now, he just has the kick to help wake up. But that's only for future films. Right now, he just has the kick he needs to wake up and then go help Godzilla. It's like someone splashing water onto your face to wake you up from deep sleep. Gia rushes over to Kong, and so does Eileen. Gia points at Godzilla and back at Kong. She signs to him, Godzilla is not the enemy. She explains the Titans just needed a new home. Now Godzilla knows where they belong. What happened wasn't his fault. Eileen tells Gia that Kong won't be able to understand all of that shit he just signed. But remember the amazing scene where it's revealed Kong knows sign language? Well, there's a reason I haven't mentioned that particular scene yet, because instead we'll be having it placed here, at this moment. Kong's hand raises as the music builds, and we get the amazing scene where he is revealed to know sign language. Eileen would have that same surprised look she has like in the film, and maybe right before he goes into battle he could possibly point at Gia and Eileen and sign home. Possibly even an I love you. This would be such a great moment. We would see Houston and Eileen utter in just surprise and shock. Gia tells him to be careful. Kong gets up and roars in pain, popping his shoulder back into place like the fucking Chad he is. He then saves Godzilla and we get a great team-up battle between both monsters. It would be much like the actual film, but a bit more creativity would be involved with the execution and the choreography. I want to see MechaGodzilla just like bombard Godzilla and Kong with missiles and whatnot. You know, give us what made the original MechaGodzilla vs. Godzilla movie so fucking awesome. We get an extraordinary team up, and together the two monsters save the day. In a subversion of expectations, after the fight is over and the monsters begin walking away, we can see Godzilla still doesn't feel entirely finished. Godzilla walks towards this destroyed MechaGodzilla and he swipes off half of his face. He snarls and looks inside. Not only are the remains of Dagon, like the skull, visible, but we also see human pilots in the machine. Godzilla just growls in utter anger. This is an outright betrayal. He defended us against King Ghidorah, against the Mutos, against all of the Titans wanting to destroy our cities, and this is how we repay him? Using the bones of his ancestors to revive this being of alien origin to replace him? Disrespecting his ancestors and in turn him? Godzilla turns around and lights the city in atomic fire. Kong turns around and sees this, roaring in anger. Godzilla turns around and blasts Kong as well because he knows Kong will just defend the humans. Godzilla is just so fucking pissed off. Subverting our expectations, we get King Kong vs. Godzilla round 3. This fight won't last too long, but here Godzilla is going to go all out and just be the vicious animal he is down to his core. As will Kong. Godzilla will tear off a chunk of Kong's arm, Kong will scratch Godzilla and bite him, and especially scar Godzilla's chest with his axe. It would actually be really cool to see Kong just slice Godzilla's face, like just half of Godzilla's jaw might just be missing, you know? Like, that would be really fucking sick. This is just gonna be a brutal scene showing how angry Godzilla is. Godzilla's just gonna take it all out on Kong. But now, Kong will be the one who wins this battle. He won't knock Godzilla out, but he definitely will knock him down. At the end, the two will have a roar-off, where in between Godzilla and the humans stands Kong. Kong will hold his arm up, roaring at him to leave the humans alone. It's over now. Godzilla will roar at him, and Kong will drop his axe to show that the humans and him don't mean any harm. Kong roars at Godzilla, telling him it's time to go. Godzilla snarls at him, staring him down, and then he begins to walk away. Before he wades into the ocean, he glances at Kong one more time, and then roars at him. Kong roars back. Godzilla still does hold a lot of respect for Kong, and the two officially part ways here. And so we get our ending scenes. The few Eevee that are left fully evacuate Skull Island. Most of the Titans have entered the Hollow Earth, now through Skull Island and Hong Kong, with some still residing on Skull Island. I think we're basically going to turn Skull Island into Monster Island. Mark and Madison live happily together while working at Monarch. Bernie heads a research department at Monarch, Josh and Madison are both in high school and are actually making some friends. Kong decides he will remain in the Hollow Earth as Skull Island is incredibly small and he no longer has a duty to protect the Iwi anymore. He has a duty to protect Gia, Eileen, Houston, and even Nathan. Eileen and Nathan walk around with some ending dialogue. Maybe Eileen teases him that like the kiss was nothing and Nathan plays it off like, sure, okay. This could probably be a relationship that you can develop across future movies, because assuming you have this colorful cast of characters within the next 3 or 4 Kong movies, that would be really nice. It's probably better to develop their friendship a lot more, and then the payoff for the relationship will be a lot more sweet, as opposed to just diving into a relationship. For now, they can be a little touchy-feely, like, you know, have each other's hands behind each other's backs, or maybe hold hands as they walk by with Gia. They meet Houston on a platform, who is there helping set up this Monarch base in the Hollow Earth. We get that beautiful ending showing Kong landing, looking at Gia, but here he points at her, and then he signs to her the word home. This shows that home is where they are together. Kong roars over the Hollow Earth, signifying he is now the ruler of it completely, challenges and all. It signifies a new chapter in the King Kong and Godzilla stories, and teases the possibilities of what's to come. And that's the end of my rewrite to Godzilla vs Kong. Alright everybody, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I truly hope you all enjoyed. I was not expecting this rewrite to end up as long as it did, I'm gonna be honest. I remember another YouTube video mentioning that it is much easier to fix a broken movie than to create an excellent new one from scratch. And I want you guys to remember that at the end of the day, while I still like Godzilla vs Kong, this is the potential I see in a kind of movie like this. I hope I didn't come off as biased to either side of Godzilla and Kong. I grew up with both of these characters, and while I do love King Kong a little bit more, that definitely does not negate my love for Godzilla. Just because I like Kong more doesn't mean I would ever want to shit on Godzilla. I really want to tell a story with a great human cast, and one that truly means something more than just mindless action. Not to say GVK was purely mindless action, you know, a lot of the seeds for a good storytelling are planted there, but I just think that these movies tend to always botch the execution. So, I hope that I was able to give you guys a good story that pays respects to both character icons, and one that felt like it had a lot of depth. And after coming hot off my rewatch of both Godzilla the series and Kong the animated series, I realized that the one thing the MonsterVerse movies seem to lack are humans and monsters truly connecting, you know, feeling like they're in the same scene, being on the same ground. I think Godzilla the series does this so beautifully, and that series might just be my favorite Godzilla series ever, I gotta be completely honest. Again, with this film, I think like the cast was a bit too bloated, but future Kong movies can have the Team Kong characters again, because, at least the ones that I included in this one, because they seem like a super fun and colorful bunch, you know? They look like they can carry a film on their own, and especially with Houston there, because he provides like the insight to Kong. He's kind of like the oldest person, therefore he's the wisest. I think Houston being involved in that really helps provide some levity and adds for more depth and world building. But let me know what you guys think down below. If you guys would like to go about this a different way, I would love to hear how you would rewrite this movie in the comments down below. Please don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more. There's a lot of good stuff coming on this channel, so please stay tuned. I hope you all enjoyed. This has been King Kong 9700. I love you all so much, and I will see you soon. Until next time, bye-bye.